in the dim, flickering light of the slave quarter. Before even the first bird dared to break the heavy silence of dawn, he was awoken. Rough hands shook him from what little restless sleep he had found. Turul, the once proud eagle of rebellion, stirred first among the huddled mass of slaves. The one torchlight caught his handsome face, casting long shadows across the hard lines of his jaw and the proud set of his brow. His body, coated with the grime of dried sweat and fresh dampness from the oppressive night heat, gleamed under the unkind light. Every ridge, every thick bundle of muscle, glistening like hammered bronze. It was a body made for war. And now, it lay claimed by shackles and scars. As he sat up slowly, muscles protesting under the weight of fresh stiffness, the young man's gaze swept across the gloom of the slave quarters. All around him, the others still lay tangled in their restless sleep, their bodies seeking in dreams the only freedom left to them. A bitter breath escaped his lips. Not for him. A clumsy shadow loomed beside him. Thomas, the lumbering giant, mumbled thickly through his sluggish tongue.
Get up, Birdman. Hurry now. Masaroka say you gotta work like 10 men. You hear?
The voice was slow and clotted, yet the menace behind it was plain. As the giant waved a heavy, careless arm toward the far end of the yard, Turul knew no more rest. Only the grinding toil of his new life. Burdened by the heavy wooden beam, digging into his strange shoulders, the young captive trudged across the damp, uneven lawn, at the far end of King Rossz's compound. Sloshing buckets hung from either side of the beam, swinging heavily and throwing off his balance with each labored step. The sodden ground sucked at his bare feet, and the dim, murky light made every stride more treacherous. The magnificent physique that had once led rebels into battle now bent to a baser task, hauling water like a broken ox. Yet, it was not merely the weight, the mud, or the darkness that slowed him. Iron cuffs bit cruelly into his ankles, each one shackled to a heavy iron ball that dragged behind him with grinding resistance. He was free enough to labor, to toil as his captors demanded, but no longer free to walk, to fight, or to flee. Every dragging step was a bitter reminder that, though his spirit stood unbroken, his body now moved only as the tyrant decreed. The agonized cry tore through the damp night air, raw and chilling. Instinctively, Turul lifted his weary gaze toward the towering structure that loomed over the compound. Dim, pale lights flickered from narrow windows, barely piercing the heavy darkness. There it stood. The infamous Tower of Evil. He remembered too well how he had once been hoisted from the underground dungeon into that grim place, the king's private chamber, before being cast down to the slave quarter. Hearing the fresh cry now, he knew without doubt that another victim had fallen into the tyrant's brutal grasp. Yet, even amid his grim toil, the warrior's mind remained sharp. To labor outside, under the open sky, even under crushing burdens, was far better than rotting in chains within the wall. Out here, he could move, he could observe. Every step through the muck, every stolen glance around the compound, offered a chance to map its layout in his mind. Somewhere beyond these walls, his comrades might still endure. There might yet be an opening, however small, to rally, fight, and flee together. The giant's thick-tongued voice broke the heavy stillness.
Tip and buckets in. They needs hundreds more.
The crude order was tossed out without care, meant only to drive him harder. Yet, for the sharp-eyed captive, it was a hidden gift. The place where he must unload the water lay near the fortress's lower halls, close enough to the heavy stone foundations of the main tower. Turul slowed his pace, disguising it as exhaustion. Shoulders sagged under the burden, but his mind stayed sharp, counting every step, noting every crooked door, ladder, and shadowed alcove the dim torchlight revealed. Each labored breath built the map he stubbornly etched in his mind. But before his plan could take deeper root, a bark tore through the gloom.
Faster!
A whip cracked mercilessly across his broad back, Thomas's heavy hand behind it, snapping his body and thoughts back to brutal reality. The uneasy feeling gnawed at him harder than the pain. It wasn't the whip or the aching labor. It was the ceaseless, heavy stare of the giant guard. Thomas had been ordered to keep an eye on him, and the brute did so, with dull, thoughtless persistence. There was no malice in that gaze, no cleverness, only a mindless vigilance. Turul felt shackled not by iron alone, but by the unblinking stupidity of a beast, trained only to obey. Finally, beyond the looming walls of the compound, a faint light stirred along the distant horizon. Turul, though burdened and bone-weary, caught the slow change with a warrior's sharpness. He had half expected it, for in better light, his keen eyes could glean more details, more chances. Yet deep within, he knew bitterly well, this light did not mark any reprieve. It was but the beginning. The harsher trials of the true day still lay ahead, and he would need far more strength to survive them.